crisis, perhaps the worst crisis in a generation. Not since the 1970s have we experienced an energy emergency on this kind of scale, and once again, that is hitting the most vulnerable the hardest. Post-pandemic inflation, food insecurity, the climate crisis. Tackling one requires addressing them all. Energy.
We've just had historic flooding. We've had historic wildfires. We've had historic now snowfall, an earthquake just in the last month.
Saudi Arabia takes its good fortunes to heart to play an important role in energy security, in food security.
From the Kingdom's perspective, we have been playing a leading role in promoting environmental policies, in promoting ways to counter and confront climate change.
Kingdom, for instance, is investing almost $200 billion in deploying renewable energies in the Kingdom and abroad. Our companies are active in 21 countries around the world deploying solar and wind energy and other sources of renewable energy. But that's going to take decades for the developing world especially to be able to have enough energy for it to replace traditional energy fuels. In that interim period, we need to maintain a stable supply of traditional energies and one that is priced in a way that ensures that stability.
We've played a big role in energy security and the just energy transition, fighting climate change without having to go back to coal for even a little bit.
And we were able to leverage the digital twins and metaverses to produce the lowest carbon intensity when it comes to our energy production, but also prevent flaring with an IoT implementation.
We want to continue to become a conventional energy leader and a clean one as well. Saudi Arabia and Saudi Aramco are the cleanest in terms of its emissions and production of oil and all the associated activities.
If we're going to re-engineer globalization into globalization 2.0, what is the design parameters to retain the wins, but add to it the resilience, sustainability, and agility that we need?
Well, our participation is very important. Saudi Arabia today recognizes its responsibility for the country itself, but also for global action, working together to address global issues. So whether it's energy security, whether it's climate action, whether it's economic investment for the betterment of society and the world, those are areas and files that are very important. We today in Saudi Arabia think about foresight as a driver of action.
Instead of increased leverage, we need to reduce carbon leverage. Instead of maturity transformation, we need net zero alignment. And it's not just the banking system, it's the entire financial system.
Central banks that have been very accommodative. We had central banks providing liquidity through quantitative easing, and now central banks are now doing quantitative tightening, so we're seeing less liquidity.
Some of the areas that we see as particular opportunities, which is a little unusual, is the public sector leading the private sector. There's a little bit of everyone's back's a little bit out of joint in the private sector because the public sector is leading the way. It feels very dynamic. The talent base there is extraordinary as well.
When we talk about what we do with our neighbors, it's all about investing. It's all about building sustainable economic growth in our region.
In Saudi Arabia, for example, we have launched a global supply chain resilience initiative. We call it JISRI. It is intended not only to strengthen Saudi Arabia's resilience, that's a small part, the bigger part, but for Saudi Arabia to be a hub, to be part of that multi-hub system globally, playing to our strengths of access to materials, access to relationships within the region, and beyond, access to the most sustainable energy mix going forward.
This is very complex and it takes time for everyone to understand it, including governments, and to understand how they will be impacted, where and to what end. And ultimately there are always options, but if you extend the investment horizon a little bit and think more long term, I think and couple that with raising institutional capabilities everywhere.
governments also have a role in developing the human capital required for the sector. It's a two-way street. We cannot expect investors to come and put their investment in the country without really having the ability to see that the pipeline of creating the right human capital is actually there, from education, from training, from skilling and reskilling and so on.
The reason the world has advanced so much the last 3-4 decades is because of the efficiency of the global supply chains.
We have actually a very important role to play. We are the largest economy in the Middle East. We have a very strong presence in the international arena. We are a G20 member. We are a single chair in the IMF, the International Monetary Agency, our fund. We are a single chair in the World Bank. We influence what happens there. We protect the interests of low-income countries and the middle-income countries. We are their voice. And that makes a big difference when it comes to the difficulties that these low-income and middle-income countries are facing in this very difficult time. High inflation, geopolitical tensions.
اليوم وجودنا في المنتدى الاقتصادي العالمي يركز على ملفات مهمة، من أهمها توجهنا حول التقنية والعمل القائم مع الوف لتطوير ذلك. لكن أيضا المملكة اليوم ولله الحمد في قطاع التعدين على سبيل المثال استطاعت أن تخلق منصة مهمة، وهي منصة مؤتمر التعدين أو مستقبل المعادن. هذه المنصة هي منصة في الرياض تجمع جميع أصحاب المصلحة من حكومات أو شركات أو مستثمرين أو أكاديميين للنقاش حول تحديات هذا القطاع، وأيضا الفرص اللي موجودة فيه، كيف يمكن للعالم أن يوفر المعادن المطلوبة لتحقيق النمو الاقتصادي والنمو الصناعي، وأيضا تحقيق متطلبات الحياد الصفري بشكل عام.
Innovation, human goodwill, and ingenuity, we have the capacity to turn the challenges into opportunities.
How we ought to think about emerging technologies, how they impact our lives, what some of the risks are, and really how do we maximize the benefits of technologies for humanity.
2.7 billion people on the face of Earth don't have access to the internet, don't have access to education, remote work, and remote healthcare. This is completely not acceptable.
COVID-19 hit the world including Saudi. Saudi was largely prepared. We invested heavily in technology before that. So when COVID hit, we were able to very quickly, seamlessly really move from actual to virtual in a lot of sectors.
The kingdom celebrates with Ericsson one of the fastest 5G deployment, and as a matter of fact, in terms of spectrum allocation, the kingdom today ranks #1 in terms of spectrum allocated for the industrial internet, the industrial 5G, and subsequently the metaverse.
The only thing I think is too much of a good thing could be a little bit bad, and I think we went after efficiency, after cost efficiency, to an extreme that we introduced the fragility that we read about in the newspaper. We ended up getting disruptions here and there after being so dependent on just-in-time delivery.
We believe that technology will allow us to leapfrog for the future. So advanced manufacturing is key, AI, 3D printing, and so on. This will also allow us to create the right jobs for the future, the right jobs that we would like to see for our children and their children.
The Jobs Consortium is moving forward, implementing a new vision for a better future of work.
I think our conversation today could not come at a more crucial time.
When we talk about inequality and we talk about inequity and sustainability, you can't possibly have a sustainable economy if 50% of your society isn't included. The kingdom addressed inequity from the start of the design and inception of the vision, and that's something that's fundamental for people to understand. Women weren't an afterthought in the design of what we're doing.
Women inclusion and empowerment in tech. This is the most audacious and bold reform story in the 21st century. We jumped from 7% to 32%. Mind you, this is higher than the EU average, G20 average, and also the Silicon Valley average.
But what I really wanted to convey is that the role of women and everything we've talked about, every aspiration, every dream, every KPI we put, has come to fruition to such a point that we've had to elevate and heighten and increase the numbers that we would aspire to, because our 2030 goals have been achieved in 2022.
Because Saudi is a young population. 60% is below the age of 30, 41 below the age of 25. We're hoping that from this, there will be that access to innovation, lifelong partnerships, and a force for good innovation and solving challenges. We believe there's a lot of talent in Saudi that can contribute on this platform. A small example, during the World Cup, 8 players from our soccer team are under the age of 23. That shows the power of the youth when you give them the opportunity.
Well, the annual meeting that the WIF hosts every year is a great platform because of a number of reasons. One, it invites a diverse audience, so the participation is from the public sector, private sector, academia, think tanks, and others, so we have a diverse attendees base. In addition, the themes that they select every year. This year, the topic is cooperation in a fragmented world, so the topic is very timely. And how the kingdom is responding to that is likewise. We have a diverse number of attendees coming from the Saudi side. We're covering the political, economical, climate-related matters through the delegation that the kingdom has sent this year.
Saudi Arabia has entered the implementation stage of Vision 2030. And so it's very important for us to engage in global discussions about solutions for global challenges, preparing the world for advanced manufacturing and jobs of the future, but also fulfill our commitment to work together with global partners. But most importantly, we would like to tell our story of change and tell the story of the kingdom's value proposition.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. My name is Nof Ahmed Al-Asaimi.
اتواصلوا معايا وجاني ايميل عن طريق الورد ايكونوميك فورم، حابين انك تكوني معانا. انا قلت وورد ايكونوميك فورم، قلت اسفه انا والله مشغوله هذا الوقت، حكون في المالديفز عندي رحله. قال لي اوكي وات شيم. قلت ليش ما تساليه وتقولي له طب ايش تبغوا بالضبط؟ اتواصل معايا قال لي كنا نبغاك تسوي الاوبننج سيرموني. قلت ايش؟ قال لي يس. فكان متقسم السبيتش 3 أقسام. أول قسم مين أنا، بعدين Red Sea. أنا I call myself Red Sea citizen because of my love for the sea. Why does it matter to be called a citizen؟ وبعدين تكلمنا على most important point اللي كان الopening ceremony عنها اللي هي coral reefs of the northern Red Sea. وهنا I ask the world leaders to preserve and protect the coral reefs of the Red Sea.
Without dialogue, you can't have understanding. Without understanding, you can't have peace. It's that simple. We need to talk to each other. If we disagree, that's great. We need to understand why we disagree, and perhaps we can find ways to overcome those disagreements. And if we can't overcome those disagreements, we agree to remain in disagreement. Nothing wrong with it. But you have to have a dialogue, and you have to have communication. And you can't have dialogue and communication unless you're there. And as the saying goes, 90% of life is showing up. And Saudi Arabia has a great story to tell. We have a great responsibility as the major energy producer in the world. We have a great responsibility as the custodian of the two holy mosques and the birthplace of Islam. We have a great responsibility given our geographic location. We have a great responsibility given our financial situation as one of the largest investors in the world. And so we need to engage with the world, and we need the world to engage with us so that we can move towards building a better future for everybody on this planet.
So there are a lot of tangible results, and the change is overwhelming. I think we are happy about it, but we haven't yet actually realized how serious it is and how beneficial it is, not only for Saudi and Saudi people, but for the wider region and possibly for the world.
And that to me is inspiring. And that tells me that the vision is not just a vision, it's a reality. But it is incumbent upon us, all of us who are in government offices, to not just rest on our laurels and say we've arrived. We haven't. What we've done is achieved a goal and a target earlier than planned, and that means we have to set our next targets. So what I would hope to do is excite and energize this next generation of leaders all around the world to expect more of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, because we'll deliver.
We will continue our plans to diversify the economy. We were very fortunate that we've seen results of Vision 2030 materialize over the last few years, especially in 2022, as Saudi is becoming the global growth story.
رسالة لشباب وشابات اللي ساعدونا وجعلوا هذه الأيام الأربعة المليئة بالنشاط والحيوية، جعلوها أيام بالفعل فيها مردود عالي وكبير. لا يمكن لهذا المردود أن يتحقق إلا بالجهد الكبير الذي قاموا فيه لتسهيل مهمتنا، تسهيل عملنا، ترتيب المواعيد، جعل هذا المكان أيضا يعني مكان مناسب للقاء. فنشكرهم على جهودهم، وهم بالفعل ما يجعلنا نتحمس بشكل أكبر. هم مستقبل المملكة. دعواتنا لهم بالتوفيق، وإن شاء الله نلقاكم في دافوس القادم.
I would say that you as a team helped frame this trip for us. We're busy, we're tired, we're exhausted, and you made this trip not just easy, you made it personal, you identified the strength of every single participant, and you played up to them. You took the journey that could have been a week's long and shortened it, and for that I'll tell you I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every word and letter you put on that paper, because I know that took you hours to deliver. I know it took you time, and you understood, from my point of view, what is important to me. And it is very rare that I can find someone that can shorten the path between what I'm thinking and what I want to say, and you helped me do that. So people never thank you, and I'd like to thank you, because what I was able to perform and deliver was your work. And so thank you for that.
I'll say two things here. First of all, a statement that I've heard earlier today from a German person. And Germans normally and generally, they don't actually flatter easily. So he came here and he said, actually, I was confused whether I'm in the Saudi suite or I'm in the conference center. It was buzzing. It was a lot of people from across the world are here to listen to the Saudi story. So that's a very nice, really, statement to be made. I am very proud. I am actually a very strong believer of our young women and men who are really making a difference. I am proud of how they are embracing the change. I'm proud that they are making a lot of efforts to enable people like me to do what I need to do. And I'm not saying it really to flatter them, but reality is they should be proud of themselves.
I say God bless them, and may there be more of them. The work that they're doing is very important, critically important. I don't think Saudi Arabia would have been able to present itself as effectively if it hadn't been for the work of all these young men and women that you refer to. Their creativity, their energy, their commitment is commendable, and it is one of the reasons that you see Saudi Arabia exhibiting more energy, and that you see Saudi Arabia being much more dynamic and much more robust in its dealings with the international system. And you also see Saudi Arabia realizing and achieving many positive objectives and goals. And it goes back to, at the end of the day, it's people. And we always say that Saudi Arabia's greatest natural resources are its people. And among our people are young people, are the young men and women who are optimistic about the future, who are energetic, who are excited about their country and excited about the role that Saudi Arabia plays in the international system and the role that Saudi Arabia can play even more in the international system. This all is a tremendous contribution to positioning Saudi Arabia as one of the leading countries in the world. So I say thank you to every young man and woman who was involved in this effort, and I say God bless you.
I'd say the main highlights is that the Saudi delegation came as one team and we were present. I think on various topics and various panels, different kind of engagements, whether the private sessions, the public sessions, the bilateral agreements, bilateral meetings, multilateral meetings with heads of state. I think the Saudi delegation was there to get a reading, an accurate reading on the pulse of what's going on around the world, but also to be a thought leader and to communicate our thought leadership to the global community. I think the ministry's role being a central independent entity that coordinates a lot with other entities and its ability to convene all entities on various issues related to our vision and opportunities for us to execute it places it in this position. We're proud and honored that we were given this opportunity, but we're also proud and honored to be working with all the entities as one team in making sure that this delegation is impactful and effective in its presence, but also in the work that comes after Davos.